So it's been about 12 months since I did a studio tour, so I just wanted to show you what I've been up to, what I've changed, and some of the things I've been doing. Now, typically I record this sort of style, but I'll record in an inset, so let me show you what that looks like. So this is my inset recording, this is how I normally do it, and basically all I do is I'm talking and I've got slides and I've got a screen I can see, which I'll show you later. And I just tap my keypad and I can bring in my animations and I can talk through my animations. So this is basically the look I'm going for and the style I'm going for. And then the studio is designed around this look. And it's really important to understand that you design a studio around a particular look or style of video course. And every element in the studio is there to aid this. So I can record like this, or I can remove my picture-in-picture and just go straight to slides. So let me do that. And this is from a recent update to my social media marketing mastery class. And I'm just tapping my screen and I'm talking through and I'm bringing up my text on screen. And because I'm running all my slideshows as an animation in the background, I can add my animations and record straight off of those animations, and I can do some pretty fancy things with those animations which you've just seen here. So I prepare all my animations in advance, record it, stitch it all together, and that's how we get the particular style and look I have. And just a little tip for you, I think it's easier to do your animations before you record than to do them after in After Effects. It's much more efficient to have them ready and just record them with a system like this. So one of the major things I've done is moved away from green screen recording and moved to an inset recording style. And the reason I've moved to this is, one, when you appear very large on the screen, it can be quite overpowering. And two, green screen in a small space like I've got is quite difficult to pull off sometimes without getting a green cast and those sorts of things. Obviously, lighting a white background has its own issues and technical skills that we need to address, so I'll be talking about that as we go through the studio tour and explain how I've overcome some of those issues. But I just wanted to show you how this works, and a lot of the things I'm doing here can actually be done in software like XSplit Broadcaster or OBS. So you can achieve the same sort of effect with a very, very low budget, and OBS is free. I think XSplit Broadcaster is like £15 for 3 months. OBS is free, so you sort of have those options if you want to do picture-in-picture and switching like this. And one of the advantages of a system like this, you can do some really fancy animations or simple animations on screen, and I can remove myself from on screen and just move to a full slide. I can go to screen share. I've got a PC that feeds into my switcher. Don't worry if all this terminology is new, I'll explain it as we go along through the tour. I've got the PC coming in so I can do screen capture as well, so I can switch to screen capture if I'm showing something on screen. And the whole idea of this is to get the production time down. Now, I don't need any production assistance. I'm recording this completely by myself because the technology has allowed me to remove the need for those things. So for instance, just having a reference monitor in front of me, I don't need somebody behind the camera. I can see all the time what is going on. But let me just show you what it looks like when I remove myself and run an animation. So this is a simple live animation, so I'm just going to activate it and it's going to come in with the text. Really simple, but adds a little bit of interest, and obviously I can just bring in that image as well, and it's all animated in Keynote. Nice and simple, nice and easy. So how am I doing all this? Well, let's have a look at equipment, but here's the thing. When you create a particular style of training course, if you want a particular look in your training, that is where you start. I want this look. Now I'm going to work towards that with my camera, my lighting, my microphone. And once I've got that, then I build my equipment up around the look I'm trying to achieve. Now, when you first start creating your own training courses, what you're going to find is that you're going to be a lot more low budget and you're not going to have as many options. But what I strongly recommend people to do is, as you grow your business, as you create more and more training courses, and as more income comes in, invest in the technical side, invest in the equipment, because the higher tech level you have in the recording, the more perceived value the student's going to see they have, or they're going to perceive they have, because they can see you've invested in the quality of the recording. And also it's going to reduce issues like editing and audio editing. All these things are going to come down. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to discuss what's on my desk here so you can see a few things, and then we're going to grab a camera and we're just going to go around the studio and show you the whole studio. So believe it or not, this is really important what we've got right here. So this mouse here is for my PC. So, and this is a silent mouse. There's hardly any click when you click it. So if you're going to have a mouse and use a mouse, then you want to make sure you got a silent mouse. And then my PC keyboard is just out of shot here. So if I need to type something or do a search or bring something up, it's there. Now obviously I've got my MacBook here, and on my MacBook is my slideshow, and I'll show you what that looks like. I'll bring the camera out so you can see the back of this as well and see everything this way. But this is feeding the graphics into my switcher, and I'm basically controlling this. Now, one of the problems I had was, how do I switch this without it being too obvious? Well, that's why I got one of these Apple sort of keypads, and I can literally just tap with my finger and that will change the view. And the thing with this is it's silent. So again, I'm dealing with noise. You start to see that this is silent, this is silent. I'm reducing noise in the studio and controlling the amount of noise, because that's really going to help me produce the video. And I'm not going to have to try and remove background noises as much because I've reduced the noise. So simple little things like that make a huge difference. No mouse clicks, no clicks here when I transition a slide, and we're bringing noise down. Now, one of the things we have to understand is the size of this studio. This is an 18-foot by 8-foot room, so it's not a huge space. But the important thing is the 18-foot from the front to the back of the studio. So that's the length, 18 foot long by 8 foot wide. Now, the reason that's important is that if you've got an 18-foot front to back distance, when you film with your camera, you can shoot at 50mm or 85mm. Now, if you shoot with 35mm, what you're going to do is distort your face. You're going to thin your face back. 50mm to 85mm on a camera is going to give you very close to natural shape. It's not going to stretch your face back. So that's important to understand. And to do that, I need this 18 foot. And 18 foot is about as... You don't want to go any shorter than 18 foot if you're doing this, because I still need like a couple of feet behind me on the background so that I'm not casting light on myself. So I've probably got about 4 or 5 foot behind me space. Now, another thing you'll notice, I've got the microphone in shot, and a lot of people struggle, should I have the microphone in shot? I personally don't think that the student cares. I think for them, they just assume that's normal. But the way I've done this is I've made sure it looks nice, it looks good. We do have a very good mic here, so it actually looks good in and of itself. So if your mic is nice and looks good and isn't scruffy, then keep it in shot, because the advantage I've got here is this is about, what, 8 inches away from my voice, which means I can turn the gain down on my mixer or my mic. If you have your gain on your mic, I have it on a mixer, and that reduces the amount of background noise this mic is going to pick up. And the closer you get, the better quality you're going to get from your mic. So I did used to have it above me out of shot, as some of you remember if you've seen some of my earlier videos, and then I had to wrap that in a DIY sound booth. But the problem I kept having was I just wasn't picking up some of the bass, because that was like 15 to 18 inches away from my voice. By moving it in, having it in shot like this, I get a much better sound quality. And personally, I don't think it distracts visually. I know some people don't like it, but I've never had a student complain yet. Now, one of the first things that people ask is what camera you're using. Now, I'm using the Canon C100, which is a professional camcorder, and you don't need this camera. You can use a Panasonic camera, even a Panasonic bridge. I'm actually filming all this on a Panasonic bridge right now. But what this camera does is it's got a base ISO of 800, so that means that with video work at 800 ISO it's really clean. So I've just got a couple of stops of light advantage with this camera that I'm going to have over a DSLR and over other cameras. So that's why I use that, and then on the front end of that I've just got an 18-135 STM lens, which is what I recommend. This will fit on any Canon DSLR as well, and this is just a great all-round lens, 18mm to 135. You've got most of the range you need, and I think I shoot on f8. I don't need to go to a wide angle. I've got sufficient light and ISO on this camera that I can shoot at f8, which means I get a nice deep depth of field, which means I don't go out of focus when I'm recording. So that's the camera. That's where most people sort of start. Now you'll notice that on the wall I've got these packing blankets, and these are sound treatment, so this will absorb some of the echo that's going on in this room. And that's very important. Top tip, packing blankets, very cheap off Amazon. Use those and they're going to reduce some of the sound. So then on the back of the door, I've got some carpet tiles, which is going to stop some sound coming through. I've also got some edging around there with a rubber seal to try and keep that door as sealed as possible. I do live in a high noise area, and it can be very difficult to reduce some of the noise. And as you can see as we move around, all my walls are the same. We've got soundproofing on the walls, and then as we come around you can see my main recording area. Now on the ceiling, you'll see my ceiling is black. I've actually covered it in black material, so I've got some hooks and I've pinned it up, and the reason I do that is because I want to control what the light does in my studio. By having black walls, you see I've got black walls, dark grey blankets, a black ceiling and a black floor, I'm stopping the light bouncing around. That means that any light I use is exactly the light I want to use. So while we're on the subject of light, let me show you my lighting setup. I use a 5-point lighting setup, and you can already see at the back I've got a strip light, which is my hair, my rim light. Now that is an LED light. All my lights are LED, and these are basically ceiling lights that I've converted for use in the studio, so they're very, very cheap. I've got a whole video on my lighting setup, how I used ceiling lights for my lighting. So go and check that out if you want to understand a little bit more about how I've done this. But LED lighting is much better. Now a lot of people, and I used to use them as well, we use fluorescent lighting kits. Now I don't like them for a couple of reasons. One, they make a little bit of noise. They often buzz. And two, they give off a gas, they give off a certain chemical reaction because what's in the tubes isn't that healthy. So if you're recording for a long period of time, you're breathing in that stuff. So I went to LEDs, they saved me, they're about 10% of the power consumption of the old lights, so I saved money there. They're cold, they don't get hot, or they get warm to the touch at best, so I'm not going to burn myself on them. I'm not a fire risk, and they're so cheap now, LED ceiling panels, that when you use them, strip lights or the panels which I'm going to show you in a moment, that you get really good lighting for a really, really good cost. Now let me show you the lights from the position of filming. So this is what my studio looks from the back of the studio looking forward. Now you can see lots of monitors going on, but we'll talk about those in a moment. But what I want you to see is my two ceiling lights. These are literally ceiling panels, LED ceiling panels, and I've mounted them in a frame, and they're nice big light sources. So I get a nice even strong front light, and you can see I've got them in front of me quite a bit, and then that way I don't get any shadow on my face from my microphone and things like that. So they're two panels on boom arms, don't have to be on boom arms, you can put them on a couple of stands, and that's that. Then what I've got is two more strip lights on the side here. So let me just see if I can bring that around. Obviously they're a little bit longer than what they appear here. And then what I've got is I've got a stick in a cap on the floor, which is a stick with a concrete base. Hopefully you can just make that out. It's a bit dark, but you can just make that out. And then I just stick my light on that, and now I've got a light to light my backdrop. Now with these lights, you can't control the amount of light that's coming out. They're fixed light sources, but you just control the amount of light by moving them backwards and forwards. That's going to give you your control. So it's the same on the panels as well. And then you can see, you just about make out here, I've got some flags here. And this flag stops the light from falling on me and just goes onto the background. And this is how I get my white background. It's these two side lights, a little bit of light from the panels at the front, and that's going to give me a nice clean white background. Now I've got a color temperature of 6500 on these LEDs, so that gives a slightly blue cast, which you can see when you look at the picture in picture. So all I have to do to deal with that is I expose my camera about half a stop below where it should be, and then in post-production, when I brighten it up half a stop, that white background, that color cast completely disappears. My skin then comes up to the right exposure and we're pretty much good to go. So let's have a look at everything from here. So you can see my MacBook, you can see all my stuff on my table, and you can also see my iPad over there. Now this iPad has some software on it which goes to my switcher, which is the heart and center of my system. So I literally can go over there, I can press, let me show you. I can take it out of picture in picture, and that is how I change my camera shots. So I've got my camera on one, so I double tap that, it's going to go to my main camera. Yeah, I haven't got a second camera set up at the moment. I do have one up here. You might have seen it when I was looking earlier. So I've got a down camera, which is not connected at the moment. If it was, that would be on camera 2. That's my MacBook on camera 3, and that's my PC on camera 4. So I can switch between those by very quickly, and then I don't have to do that in editing. And then if I want to do picture in picture, I just click picture in picture, select the one I want it to be picture in picture on, and we've created our picture in picture. So that's the tablet which controls the Cerebro Live Wedge. I'll just give you a shot of that in a little while. And then obviously the MacBook is here. As you can see, I've got my slideshow, so let's just zoom in on that for you. And then all I have to do is press the pad, and that's going to start my animation coming in. Now you can't see the animation here, but if I move the camera and show you the back, so that's my reference monitor that sits below the camera, then all I have to do is hit my animation, it moves along. So that's how that works, and you can just about see me in the picture in picture here. That reference monitor is one of the most important things in my studio. So all my cameras and the MacBook and the PC are treated as cameras by my switcher. In case you're wondering what the two monitors over here are, these are my PC monitors. I've got two monitors there which I can see at all times, which my PC runs off. The PC outputs a third monitor, which you can't see visually, which comes into the Cerebro Live Wedge. But then when I switch that on in the Cerebro Live Wedge, it comes up on my reference monitor so I can see what I'm screen sharing. But coming back to the Cerebro Live Wedge, this is the Live Wedge, this is a hardware switcher. Lots of different ones on the market. This one's okay, but it's a bit fiddly. The connection on the Wi-Fi to the iPad causes me lots of problems sometimes. So at some point I'm going to change this and upgrade this. As new versions on the market, other companies have done something. It's served me well. It's just a bit too flaky at times. So what we have here is an AV Media recorder. Now, one of the problems that I've had is when I take a signal out of any device and try and record it through a capture card on a PC, capture cards use a variable frame rate. Now, if you record the audio with the video and put that into the computer, it's not a problem. But if you record the audio separately, and I'll show you how I do that later, if you record the audio separately, what you're going to find is massive desync issues. What this recorder allows me to do just takes a clean output from the Live Wedge, probably the most budget solution on the market, £100–120. Most recorders like this are going to cost you £300 plus, and that's going to just take whatever comes out of that Live Wedge, which I control on the iPad, and record it, and then I record it to an SSD, which you can see next to it marked disk A. Then it gets a little bit complicated now, because now I then send a signal out of the recorder into the back of my PC, which goes into a capture card, and you can just about make out the PC here. In the back of this is the cable from the recorder. So we've got camera iPad, PC, second camera into the switcher. The switcher then outputs the recorder. I record on the recorder, and then the recorder outputs a signal to the PC, which goes into a capture card, which also outputs another signal to my reference monitor. And that's how I get to see what's on the screen. Now, it sounds really complicated, but it isn't that complicated. But it gives me that reference monitor. Now, if you're recording on a single camera, oftentimes you're going to have an HDMI output, and you can just put it straight into a reference monitor. You don't have to go through this really complicated process. But that's my system. All of that is important, and most people, when they start upgrading their equipment, they're like, okay, I need a better camera. I've made some money from my courses, I want to do some talking heads, I need a better camera. And I would suggest that the same urgency you have about camera, you should apply to your audio. I see a lot of people upgrading their cameras, I see very few people upgrading their microphones, and a good quality microphone is going to make so much difference to recording. So I'm using a Sennheiser Mark 8, and this is a high-end studio microphone. And the reason I'm using this is because it has a number of functions. It can record cardioid, it can record hypercardioid. It's very easy to set and change between, but it is one of their top-end studio mics. It is an expensive mic, but most people will go away and spend £1,000 on a camera, and yet they'll stop and think about spending £500 on a microphone. I would say spend £500 on your camera and get something like a Panasonic bridge camera. I'm filming this on the FZ330 or the FZ300 in the US, and that is absolutely adequate, and then spend the rest of your budget on a decent microphone. So my microphone then is on a boom arm, which you can just see there, goes up and attaches to the wall. I use a lot of boom arms for all my lights because they're very space saving, and that sits above me, and we have good quality audio because we've got a good quality mic. Now, the secret to good audio is often identifying the weak link in your audio. So this is an XLR mic. We've got an XLR mic coming out. So investing decent cables. You don't have to spend a lot on cables, but don't just buy the cheapest cables, because now you've just added a weak element into your audio. Now that's coming out of there. It's on a cable which then comes into my mixing deck. So let's show you that. So this is my mixer. It's a Mackie 802 VL-Z4. So it's probably one of the low-end budget ones in the Mackie range, but this has really good low noise. It doesn't generate any background noise, any hissing or cracks and pops. I had a Behringer before, and that did. Behringers are not really suited to high-end audio production, and this will cost about twice as much as a Behringer equivalent. But once you've got a bit of money, I strongly recommend you invest in something like this Mackie. Now, this doesn't have a USB output, so if you're recording from this into a PC or a laptop or a MacBook, then you will need to buy that in addition. But this is designed to just be really, really strong on audio, really nice sound, and also really low noise. Like I said, that then goes into the Tascam recorder, so let me have a look at that. This is the Tascam recorder. As you can see, it is a microphone as well as recorder. So it's got two microphones which can be placed in X or Y position, which basically means you can either record very close or very wide. So this is very good if you're out and about and you want to record something. I used to use this when I was doing a lot of professional video production. Stick this on a stand close to the subject and I'd get some really good quality. But the reason I use this particular recorder is it's got two XLR inputs. So that means I can take my audio straight out of the Mackie into the Tascam. So I've got a high quality mic, I've got good cables going to a good mixer, and that goes into a quality audio mixer. Now you start adding all this up, and the microphone is probably $550 with the shock mount. You want to spend £20–30 on some good cables. You got £160 on the Mackie, £150 on the Tascam. It all adds up, but it's worth it. If you're willing to pay £1,000 on a video camera, I suggest you probably want to be looking at investing the same in your audio. Now, that's not possible at the beginning. You can do courses, not essential, but as you move on, there's going to be more and more competition coming into the marketplace. And if you want your online course creation to develop into a genuine business, you have to invest in high-end audio, because audio is the most important part. People will forgive you for bad video, but they will never forgive you for bad audio. and that is the audio setup. Very simple, very straightforward. Now, one of the things you're going to have is you're going to have to sync the audio and the video, and that can create a few problems, especially if you're filming on an iPhone where you get a variable frame rate. It doesn't maintain the frame rate, or you're recording your video into a PC where you don't get the same frame rate, which is why we mentioned the external recorder I used earlier. So I would recommend, if you're recording your audio externally, you might want to consider recording your video externally as well. But there is an old simple trick from film and TV production that's going to help you sync your video and audio really easily. And it's one of these, just a simple clipper board. You can buy them on Amazon, they're not expensive. One of those, and that makes it really easy to sync your audio. So something else I've got in my studio are my backdrops, which are black, chroma key green, white and grey. Now, these are not paper backdrops. Although these are on a roll, these are PVC. And the reason I use PVC is because paper sags. So over time, what will happen, you'll buy a paper roll and it'll just sag in the middle and you get this horrible ripple. PVC is more expensive, but I've had some of these rolls for years, literally years, and they've never sagged. They are as good as the day I brought them. So if you're going to invest in a roller system where you can just change the look and bring green screen in, or white or grey or black, you want to change the background or even a different colour, invest in some PVC for the long-term value of those backdrops. And obviously that's just on a simple rail system, and I can pull them up and down as need be. So I hope you found all this useful. There's some great tips. There were some things I didn't show you, like the teleprompter setup, which I can stick on this system here. I can add a teleprompter if we use that. I don't tend to use that much these days. I tend to just use my reference monitor here, and I can see what I'm supposed to be talking about from that, and I have notes on my MacBook as well. Now, this is very high tech. I understand, you know, that this is probably going to be out of reach for a beginning instructor. But over time, we want to be developing, I think. We want to be thinking about how I can take some of the profits from my courses and invest in the long-term future of my online instruction business, because it does make a difference to the quality. And as time goes on, more and more people are going to enter the market, and the quality levels, I've been saying this for over 2 years, the quality levels are going to be increasing. If we invest in our quality now, we've got that head start. Everyone else is 2 years behind or 4 years behind. And that's just going to help you sell courses by investing in the quality of your audio and video production.